So I see we've
Stop
got
picking
John
your
on the call
noses, everybody.
today.
Oh, hey, John.
Good to see
And
you.
Lance, nice to see you.
Michelle and I have spoken to John quite a bit, but this is the first time that I think he's joining the call. John, can you hear us?
I can.
And
Can you hear me?
Can hear you. And there's Lance. Lance, is this also your first time on the call? I can't remember.
Yeah? Lance,
Yeah?
the name I've heard so much about.
Perhaps maybe we
Good to see
start
both
off
of your
today's
faces after talking
meeting.
otherwise.
Sorry? No,
Just
okay.
saying hi, that's all.
Maybe we start today's meeting with just 2 minutes about John and Lance, and everyone can, people who haven't interacted with them yet can, if you don't feel comfortable doing that on the spot, then you don't have to. But I think, maybe start with Lance.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm trying to get involved in doing a bunch of little things. Plain language was one of them, though that seems to be kind of stalled out. I'm not sure what's going on there. Then testing, and then everything all changed on the testing too. So I'm trying to get caught up here to see where I can fit in.
Yeah. Awesome. We can
Lance and I actually matching today.
Yeah, we can discuss the testing in a bit. Yeah. You are. You need a cap, Maeve.
And I need a cap. And John, well, maybe I was just speaking a little bit Lance's background. You're in Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a legal marketer for 30 years and wanted to get into legal tech, so learned to code last year. Did a boot camp, and so of course all of the code for this is like light years ahead of what I know how to do, but I'm slowly figuring it out.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get you back on track today with where we're at and what's happening. And yeah, as always, ask questions. And then John, you're over in Vancouver.
I am. The laid back West Coast, which is why I look like I've just sort of shaken myself off and gotten into the office, my home office.
So what's my excuse?
It's very true.
So what's the rest of our excuse? Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, if you're ahead by 5-6 hours? So.
Six from you guys, and I'm 9 from John. But John has a history in arbitrator, mediator. I think
right.
a long history in that and expertise, and John helped a lot with getting the 209A PDFs up to scratch for getting those labeled correctly, not labeled correctly, reformatted nicely, and so that was big. And then John also did some testing, and then Lance has also been involved in a lot of the testing and a lot of the plain language. So that's just where those are the new faces on the call today. Where we're at, we've done some housing TRO testing, right? That was a big thing that we did yesterday. That was a milestone. Yeah. It's, as I said to everyone who was testing, it was like we really appreciate their time because they're testing the testing process. They're testing how we're going to do the testing.
We've identified some flaws there, and we have identified some bugs in the TRO or some unexpected behaviors that we're not sure, where stuff is at, with that one big one being the PDF not being savable on someone's system, like on some stuff messing up with saving and emailing the PDFs. So,
because obviously, as I think it was Caroline, your statistic yesterday that most people will be accessing this from their phone, it's going to be a problem if they can't save it, or if they can't. I think that one of the feedback that we got from some of the testers, we had 4 people testing. Yes, 3 people testing yesterday: John, Melanie, and Robin. And the feedback from, I think it was from Melanie and Robin, was that they couldn't save. They had to do a lot. It was
at least Melanie
to work around to try and figure out how to save that PDF. So that's a bit of a problem. It might be a problem. I'm not sure. We need to see. So that's kind of the update from where
we need to replicate it a couple times and see if
is it that it wasn't savable, or they didn't know how to save it to their phone? I mean, because a lot of people don't save files on their phone, right?
When they did get the document, it might be that she didn't know the procedure, but that is also a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and when she did get a PDF, it was blank. It was a blank
that's
PDF.
bad. Yeah. That's
not as in the fields weren't filled, but it was just white.
just a white page.
Yeah.
So these are all things that might come up, that are gonna, possibly come up in the 209 as well. So
it's good to find them now. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as fun for Quentin. I realize that's not like
Hey,
Quentin.
I don't know
Spend a
if we're
few
finding
more
bugs
hours.
in those don't sound like bugs we saw on the interview side. It sounds more like a DocuSign issue.
Yep, we
or
want to
and or phone
replicate
issue.
them.
We want to figure out how to work around them probably.
And
so
we want to replicate and try and replicate the bugs at least once. That's a part I didn't cover with you, Maeve, so that we don't, it wasn't like the browser had to be restarted or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So that's where we're at. We're hopefully going to get some people to write some more test cases, having their experience. I'm looking at you down there, John, maybe Lance as well, looking at what the test cases look like and, the different avenues that you could go down and the different things that can be tested. That's something that I'm going to try and work on today, either writing some more myself or, getting some people to help out writing some more. Yeah.
I'd like to, before the testing phase is done, talk about Lance's tests with the 209A and the language thing. So just remind me.
That was it. That was a full
okay,
stop.
Perfect then. Lance, you've been working with the language trying to get the 209A ready. And part of that is taking in the language updates from Kate and Emily, and then testing them to make sure they're not breaking anything, and making PRs with the new language. So that is that the second part of that can't be done right now because of the stitching, and we don't have a lot of the infrastructure done for making those tests individualizable. My suggestion, and I'm happy to hear from other folks for ideas, is that Lance, you run the code through a YAML validator and at least make sure that it's validating. And then you make the PR when it's validating, and someone like Quentin or myself will have to go through it in a more refined way, trying to see if something more subtle has been broken. How does that sound to people? And in addition, to put on top of that, I'm going to need a little help understanding what priorities are for these various tasks, because I've got a few of them on my plate, and you were very clear about the quote CSS. That was great. Thank you, Quentin. And there's, so that, but it's, there's the language stuff and various testing assignments and things like that I may need some feedback about which of those things to wrangle first, second, and third type of thing.
Yeah, I think we need to just, maybe we can use this call to identify what is prioritized, because right now, we've all been prioritizing the 209A, and now that we're testing the TRO, it's kind of throwing,
yeah,
we're getting the testing set up we're testing the TRO, but in the same time figuring out how we're going to test the 209A. And when it gets to the point where we're able to test that, I'm not sure when that's going to be. Quentin, maybe you could give an indication on that.
Well,
for the 209, when we'll be finished with it, or
when we'll be able to test, when we could start testing that.
Oh, it's a good question. So I think some of the testing that Lance was doing with the language, we could probably start doing that early. We're close to being able to do it. Things are definitely a little bit dynamic, because every time that I go through it, I find little things that really should be moved to a different section or that aren't clear. But it doesn't mean it's not helpful to have people catch bugs like the one that, the kinds of bugs that we've been finding already. Because those will direct the place where I work on next to improve it, basically. So it won't necessarily be ready for like the kind of really rigorous test cases that you've been doing, but it could be a place for people to just play with it and see if they can break it. So that's kind of where I think it is now, as far as testability goes.
And is that excuse my ignorance in testing, is that something that that's worth doing, like just like going wild and just playing around and trying to break stuff, or should it be documented? Should people be writing how they got to that point? I'm not sure.
Ideally, people would play around but document what they're doing.
Is that
in that
everyone's
kind of
understanding?
Testing, I think. Quentin?
I mean, that makes sense to me, because we need to be able to figure out how to get back to that.
How they got there, replicate it, right?
Replicate it, yeah.
Because that was the thing, is when I was
playing around.
And
as long as people know it's... Sorry, yeah, the lag's tricky. I was just going to say that it's, as people are understanding of the fact that things are changing quickly. So if you test something today and I make a change, the test may no longer apply. That's the kind of frustrating part that people may have right now with testing, but it's still helpful if you catch things I haven't fixed yet, for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so basically the instruction is to let people test but record how they got to the point. If they do get a bug, then they know how they got there. And the best way of recording, I mean, recording your screen or writing down the steps.
Which I think whichever they're most comfortable with at this point, because there's not really a format, unless there's something that you would particularly find useful, Quentin.
I think that's good. One thing I was realizing is that we have that link to resume the interview. We haven't really found that it's not working in the GitHub issue right now, but I thought maybe it would even be better if we let people download the current JSON representation of the interview. That might help too with me finding the current place they are on the form.
Sure.
Something that we could add in relatively easily, but
I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a good idea to have there for users. So I think we have to be careful to take that out before it's made
before we go live.
But
yeah.
Unless we're going to make a formal thing of like, here is your data, be careful with it. You know?
Well, the problem is it's kind of a one-way representation. You can't load that back in.
Okay.
So it wouldn't really be,
so it's just
it would be like, here is your data as an archive, but not a way that they could take it and use it somewhere else, which may not matter.
If you know a flag we can set to test whether we're in dev or production, in like whether this is, even if it's testing the account, maybe if this is a dev account or whatever, then never mind. That's a conversation for the future. Matt would be shaking his head at me right now.
I know. I'm thinking of Matt right now. I'm thinking, okay, Caroline and Kate, how are you guys doing? Conscious of your time. Maybe we start with Kate?
Sure.
How are you doing?
Good. Laura Gall and I did a meeting on Zoom this morning with Jesse Aquino, who's from MOVA and oversees the Safe Plan program, and kind of showed what we had, because they had expressed some concerns about the safety, the stuff that Caroline had addressed initially, and so this was kind of to reassure them they're a really important player in DV in Massachusetts. So like, I think it would be bad if they were totally like not on board. I think they're on board. She seemed to like it. She had some really good, like, smaller points of concrete feedback. I've been trying to, or Laura did too at a few points. Mostly trying to make just bug reports of those and labeling them like they had, yeah.
Something I'm going to try to get on today, is getting those row issues labeled, getting somebody to do that on GitHub so that it's easy to see what those are about, so that it's not just, survey row 29, that we have some kind of explanation about what that is. So, it'll just make it easier for the person who's going to be going through those issues.
And I might be able to figure out how to go into GitHub and do that for the ones I submitted.
I can teach you.
Okay, yeah, because it's just, as I'm going through, it was just easier to be doing the bug report form. That was like the easiest thing to do it, because I was on the screen with them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bug report form is now the way to submit this stuff. It's just going into GitHub afterwards and clarifying, giving it a title that's meaningful.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can probably go and do that for the ones that I submitted, which is probably all of them.
Yeah,
I can take you through. It'll take 5 minutes to take you through
I suppose if you want to make them straight in GitHub, that's also not a big deal. I don't know. Maybe that's more up to Quentin.
Well, we talked about that yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was somewhat a matter of like what is easiest for the testers. I think we were discussing, and the question is what is easiest for the people for Kate right now. And
yeah,
and if making an issue straight on GitHub is easier for Kate, then is that something that's that will work with Quentin's workflow?
I mean, that is certainly not what's easier for me, but like I can do it. Like I can work within whatever workflow. Like if there's a better way, I can figure it out probably. But it's the easiest thing is clicking that form.
I think that's fine. I mean, so what I'm doing is when I run out of things that I've figured out, I'm trying to look at least once a day and try to address the things people come up with. That's really what my goal is. And I can use them on GitHub. But if
when there's screens and stuff that are out of order, because there were some places where the question order was pretty wacky, is that stuff that you want reported? I was like kind of brushing that off and figuring it was being dealt with, but there were some like questions that were clearly not in the right place.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense. Makes sense to put it in because it's one of those things is one person, it's because it's so out there. Like you're sending an email to 3 different people and you're sure that somebody's going to answer it. Everybody thinks the other person's going to answer it.
So it could be,
it was with the affidavit of care mostly. There were like questions that just popped up in the affidavit of care that I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, and that one is such a tricky one to get in the right. I mean, I think it's really important in that form more than anything else because they're so, intertwined. So it's really easy to get the questions in the wrong order.
And for context, I just wanted to say that the quick report I got from Laura was like a 1-line email. It said, "Very good meeting with Safe Plan."
It was very good.
Yeah, it sounds like it was good.
I mean, I think their like vision of a perfect world would be like somehow it could connect users with the relevant Safe Plan advocate, which is with the one for the appropriate, because Safe Plan advocates are tied to individual courts. Right. And but we were kind of saying, we're like, is that at all feasible? And she was like, no, not really. But so we talked through, we're like, what about, is giving the safe link number, which is what we have, is that kind of the best we can do? And I think we kind of agreed that that's probably the best solution right now, with the hope that Safe Link, connects people with the appropriate resources.
I mean, in the real world, there is no way. I mean, the only way to get in touch with the Safe Plan advocate is to go to that court, right? I mean, we can't manufacture something that doesn't exist, right?
Right. And like, there's issues with the courts and connecting people with the Safe Plan advocates right now during COVID when they should be. Sure. So I think there's frustration on that side because they're not getting the referrals that they should be getting from the courts, despite doing everything they can to try to get those referrals.
I mean, that would be I think not for going out right now, and also because we're still not sure about we still don't have the court selection bit nailed down, right?
Right.
So, but it seems to me we could do that. The first thing we have to do is get the court selection nailed down. Yeah. And then if Safe Plan wanted to say, here are the people, if they've got that, then I don't see why we couldn't do that.
The problem is they really aren't like 24/7.
Right.
And like, theoretically someone should answer their phone, but I don't think on their end they could like actually say like we can provide 24 hours a day or even 8.5 hours a day when the courts are open that they can provide.
But if they knew, if they had something consistent,
right,
we could do that because the Doc Assemble could figure out what time of day it was that people were, filing. But I think the problem is they're not even that consistent.
I think
they're not even that consistent, are they? Yeah.
Stick where they are. That being said, and this is something I mentioned to Laura, we could have the live chat on, and they could hop on the live chat, and it would only show up when there was someone on the live chat.
Yeah.
In which case, the person on the live chat could just act as triage, and they could say, "Hey, okay, you're filling out this. Talk to this person or talk to that person."
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They actually could do that, and that would also still mean they don't have to make a phone call, an audio phone call, which is important.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, I think that's what you're saying. It doesn't have to be the safe plan advocate for that court,
Right.
which is fantastic, right? Because then that really cuts out that whole missing infrastructure system there. So that as long as one safe plan advocate is working, you know.
Yeah.
But I think this is like gravy on top, and we'll work it out.
Yeah.
But I think in the long term, maybe not as part of the MVP, there are some really cool things that I think you could do with
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm adding it to the thing with the help button. I'm adding it to the notes to talk about. The one thing that I wanted to say was, John and Lance, you know, would you guys feel comfortable, I don't know if this is something that would be beneficial, but writing test cases, maybe just writing one test case for the TRO that is up at the moment. And John, especially you, because you've gone through one. Lance, I'm not sure if you would be, just so that we can have, my goal is to have like 10 test cases done and completed, right? Is that?
Sure.
So
Sure.
I think one of the obstacles to that right now is understanding what test cases have been written and run.
Because I've done all of them so far.
Right. So I think they do need a little description saying what part of the interaction
needs to be
they're
tested.
making right, what part they're trying to change.
To test, yeah.
And also was the question that I posted in the test channel about testing multiple unrelated things so that multiple things get covered at the same time.
So are we testing one thing per test, or are we?
And I'm specifically talking about things that don't impact each other, like filling out like only the required name information and filling out all of the name information can be tested at the same time as one other thing because it's completely independent. We just have to make sure that those PDF fields are being filled. Right.
How are we going to do this going forward? We can't have one person writing all the test cases, and we can't have every test case writer reading every test case. So how do you pragmatically go about getting more people writing test cases and not duplicating?
That's an incredibly great question.
What if you have a list of things that need to, there's got to be some sort of generic list.
The test is the list. Like
no,
it's
that's not.
You don't. I don't. Okay,
no,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So you have a generic list of everything that needs to be tested in every interview. There's certain elements that need to be identified in every interview. And then you have a list of things that need to be identified. It's not a test case. It's just these are the things that need to, one long list. Here's the interview. Here are all the things that need to be tested. And then your test cases are like you're saying, you can't test all of them in one. But if you have a list of everything that needs to be tested, then you can have a checklist and say, okay, this test case is going to be testing these ones. This test case is going to be testing these. And then then you can have multiple people writing test cases, and they know people know who are you know who else is testing those elements.
It gets, yeah.
It and an SME is the kind. An SME is the kind of person who would know what things maybe it's sort of like paired programming, because an SME is going to know what the tricky things are. So is the programmer going to know what was challenging in terms of where the conditions are, what conditions are happening here that need to be tested.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if we have those resources. Maybe we do though. I don't think we have the coding resources for sure.
I'm thinking that the TRO is relatively easy, right? You've got 3 options, but like maybe 2 screens with 3 options. But when you go into the 209A, there's like a
gazillion,
lot more options.
So like which test case has been written? Like how do we keep track of that? But like
could we write scenarios?
We can say the types of things. Yeah, we can write scenarios, but that's what the descriptions are.
Yeah.
But we can maybe have a freaking spreadsheet with the scenarios listed and then the link to the test case.
I have an idea.
That is, go ahead. Go, Maeve. I call
so what
on
if we
you.
write in the description, we write like, locked out, water cut off, I'm just thinking of the TRO now. And those are the things that will need to be tested. If all 3 things need to happen, locked out, utilities, and quiet enjoyment needs to be restored. You write all those 3 things, and then, for example, with the 2098, it would be like mother of 1 child. You write basically because that's what the test case is. So you write the description in a 2 or 3 lines about what's happening, and then people can see what's already been tested, what scenarios have been tested, and they can come up with their own test. I don't know if John, if you're going to be, John and Lance, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, if I'm on right now, yes, I do. When I did the TRO1 or first test or whatever, and put it in some half-baked fashion to your organization, the organization, I take it you got it, and the final, like the complete thing, and which a few bits that I couldn't send because I couldn't figure out how, but that was very much a functional test. Like, what happens when you click this? Do you get what you expect to see after that? None of that was like testing really, in a sense, the logic, or at least I didn't have my mind on that as I was going. I was thinking, I want to see whether or not this test actually does in its function what an interview, or I should say, whether this interview does in its function what an interview is supposed to do. So you have that other whole piece of what about the logic, and that presumably has already been tested or will be continued to be tested.
Well, that's part of what you're testing. If the output, you're doing a black box test. So we give you a thing, you put in input and you get out output, and those should be what we describe.
Well, except from the tester's perspective, I'm relying entirely upon, and this may be wrong, but I'm relying entirely upon that box that says, okay, here's what you do, or here's what you're doing.
That's the way it's built. Yes.
Yeah, and you tell us, what did you do? Here's the expected result. What was your result? I really, I thought that was just great. That's all really good, because it gives you a permanent record. If the person was awake and doing their job, it gives you a permanent record that worked at that point in time with that device, okay? And then you have some remarks. What I meant about the logic was that if someone chooses a particular thing in family law, I'm going to be following that test, whether or not the tester just lost consciousness for a while and started going off on a tangent, because that's what I'm testing. I'm testing to see whether once they click that particular radio button and they ended up heading to this next form, that is the correct form that they're going to, yes, because it says you should be on form X.
So unless you're a lawyer who has experience in that field, or a programmer who's been working on the code, like,
no, I'm asking
that's
the
who's
question.
writing it. Like, we're writing it because we know that this is supposed to happen next. Those are the people that are writing it. And then the people that are doing the tests don't need to know that, and that's kind of the point.
That's my point as well. That's what I'm saying.
I just want to say, sorry.
I'm not moving into that. That's an area that I expect is taken care of when I test that.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, I noticed sometimes, obviously, that there were things which I was not testing, which were there to be tested, such as a person didn't fill in the unit description on their address. Okay, and so there was no unit description test at all. So we don't know from my test whether or not, say,
that is correct.
That would have screwed the whole thing up, right?
Yeah, that's correct, and that would be a different test, right?
Okay,
that would be a whole, and that's the kind of test that we'd say, John, could you write that test up so that you can do it or another person can do it? We need a bunch of those different test cases written. We can't test them all at the same time.
I'm just sorry, I'm very conscious. It's 1 o'clock. If anyone needs to jump off, or I know I do it as a joke now, but I'm actually very serious. I'm really aware of everyone's time.
We also do have a new face.
Oh, hello, Melanie.
It's Melanie. She actually has been on a call before, but Melanie, you want to just, tell us
New face to the call.
like 2 minutes about you, yeah?
Yeah, hi, I'm Melanie. I joined the project a while ago and have been kind of doing some form field work in and out, but now I've officially graduated from college and have more time on my hands. And so I'm happy to get more involved. Last night, I just did a test, and I've been talking a lot to Michelle and Maeve about some PDF generation things that have been going on. But yeah, I'm happy to do whatever is necessary to help out. And now, like I said, I have a lot of more time to do that.
And also you're at the Appleseed. The Appleseed?
Yeah, so I came to this project through Massachusetts Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, since they're on the larger coalition, the Justice Coalition. So, yeah.
So that's Melanie, and she's been a great help with the testing as well. I know, so John, I kind of just stood away from you there. So no one needs to jump off the call right now. Everyone's good for another 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Thumbs up or thumbs down? All right. Cool.
I'm really conscious of, especially if you're not interested in the testing or doesn't pertain to you, then. But okay, so basically, John, what we're doing is we're just testing, we're not testing the logic of the interview. We're testing, does X happen when I click Y, or you know what I mean?
That's what I meant, the functional side of it.
It's functional.
And that does test the logic. You put in input, the right output should come out. That means that part of the logic is working.
And that's all baked in because the people who wrote the tests had already, like the program, like you were saying, yourself, you've already figured out what form should be coming out next.
Now, the people who write the tests don't even necessarily have to know that. They can look at the inputs, and we're just making sure that the input you put in makes the correct output. And I can say, as a person who fills in a form, when I put in my name in the interview, right, in the online form, it should come out on the PDF. I should be able to see it on the PDF, right? So I can write that test. Even if I don't know what else the code is supposed to do.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, so there are some tests that, now if you know the code or if you know the law, you will know a bit more about what things are worth trying to test and what things are less worth trying to test. But that is
Caroline's point.
Deeper discussion we can have. And we should ideally have these scenarios written out that go, there's this question, try each individual option, try no options, try all the options at once, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's what we have
about. And we can talk about conventions, about how to determine and those are called edge cases. And we can talk about how to assess those edge cases when you're writing tests or when you're writing a scenario. So hopefully we can go, if it works, from the scenarios, people writing scenarios, to people writing tests, to people doing the tests with as little intervention from coders and SMEs who are not free as possible, right? I mean, free ones, can dive right in there, and that's awesome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, don't let anything I say disturb you too deeply, because I'm at my superficial understanding stage right now.
Yeah.
So I will catch up with where you were at some point before this meeting, someday downstream.
Down the line, perfect.
And then you can edit out these comments of mine. But I think I understand generally what's going on a superficial level. So
okay,
that's a start.
What I'm realizing is that it might be sorry, Lance, yeah?
I was just going to ask, and picking up kind of on Caroline's point, would it be possible for someone to say, okay, for the TRO, we need 9 tests, 0 children locked out, 1 child locked out, 3 children locked out, 0 children repairs, or whatever the things are. So that then the testers can say, oh, I'll do that one, I'll do that one, I'll do that one. And that way we don't have to invent this test, without really any knowledge about.
I think that's exactly what Caroline was describing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
We're gonna try that. I want to see what it looks like on the ground, because that can also become unruly. It depends what level of abstraction you're talking about, and so we need to see. I think that's a great angle to pursue. And I think we should try that out. I think we should write 3 scenarios and see if they can be converted into tests. Maybe even 1 scenario, see if it can be converted into a test. Like take one sample, see it all the way through, and see how it works before making a bunch of them. That's my only.
I would also recommend that. But I think that, so for example, what I can say, what I've done, the 3 tests that I've done and that Melanie, John, and Robin completed were natural person, landlord, locked out, and wants to be restored. Natural person, corporation, landlord.
So we'll
cut
write
off.
them down. We'll write them down later.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So we can have it doesn't have to be like I'm not, when I initially proposed that idea, I was thinking of like a little story. But I think the way that Lance posed it was a lot better.
Yeah, no.
You don't have to say what the whole story
just the
is,
items. Yeah,
the items. So if we can do what you're proposing, Michelle, is we do. Can I write down the 3 that I've done so far in the testing channel, and then we can add 2 more, and perhaps Melanie, do you have time today?
My connection's been a little in and out, but yes, I would be totally able to.
You know what you're signing up for?
I'm around, so I'm happy to help.
I think any testing people, Melanie, Lance, John. If I don't know who would be, who has the experience or desire, but
well, I have the desire.
Yeah, I'm with John. Desire, no experience. So
well,
there you have it.
But what we could do is we could give 3 different examples of things. I'll write what I've tested so far. We can come up with 3 other things that need to be tested, and then perhaps Melanie, John, and Lance could try their hand at, even if we could get writing a test. If I just have to get some dinner just now, but then after that I could show.
No food. Keep working.
So we could get on a call and I could show you how I did the tests, how I got those tests. I think for this it's relatively easy already because all the form fields are already in the PDF. So that's already done. You don't have to extract those through any means. It's just a case of like how I figured out how to do the testing. I don't know if that would be beneficial or if you feel like you could go on it by yourself.
Also, sometimes when you're writing a test, it feels like you're doing a test, and that's usually true, and that's what it should be, because what you're doing is it's not that you want to run through the test once. These tests are going to be repeated at various stages through the development. So we need to have these test cases written so that people can perform the same test in the future.
Replicate
it's not just enough for you to do the test that you're describing. It's also important that you write it so that it can be replicated.
So I think I think that maybe if I can just jump off and get some food. And then drop, before I do that, I'll write in the channel the 3 different examples that I used, the 3 different scenarios that I came up with. It was the very simplest 3. And then there are other situations that I was thinking of doing is like, having 2 options. You were locked out and your utilities were cut off, or you know what I mean? Like there's more permutations that could be that you would need
and one thing we need to do is sit down and figure out how to identify what permutations are significant as opposed to just
and also what things need to be tested. Like I think on Melanie's test it was like check the help button or check that this actually goes to where it's supposed to go to. Those are just little things that I put in. I don't know if that needs to be put in the normal test or if that can be like a whole other test.
Those, I think clicking on links can be a whole other test.
Okay, so we don't need to incorporate. Okay,
right,
got it.
I mean we need to write those. We just don't.
That would be that would be one of those generic on all guides or interviews or whatever we call them. They're going to be links. So that's going to be one thing that you test, and you might set for each test case that you create. I mean, for each guide, you're going to have a list of the links there that need to be tested, or the terms, right? The green words. So that goes in your generic. Test cases are going to.
It's a bit more, Caroline. It's a bit more complex than that. So, but we can definitely discuss how we're going to approach that.
So, Lance, just to use my jargon to circle back, at the beginning of the call, you said you weren't that, sure you wanted to get caught up on what to do or where you fit it in. Do you have more of an idea of what you're going to be doing? Okay, good. You've cut out our matching jumpers. It's like you don't even want to match. Also, Lance has a priority board behind him with, it doesn't even match. With little stickies. I see all the stickies are gone on the priority board.
Yeah, well, I said because you made that comment in the last call, I took them down and I need to put them back up again. I just haven't had the chance. And reframe my priorities, as it were.
Okay. Okay. So I'll drop those
speaking
in the.
Yeah, I was just going to say, speaking of which, did we need any discussion around priorities? Michelle had flagged that originally.
Michelle did mention that. Maybe
I
we
did.
should.
I can't. I don't think I can organize my brain well enough to even list what the things that need to happen.
So
But I think.
yeah.
I think.
Bless you, Kate.
Yeah, we can do some general ones. I think the TRO, right?
Yep.
Is TRO testing? Is all TRO stuff top priority above any other stuff? So, for example, is it above language stuff for the 290? 209.
I think that the thing to prioritize is we want to prioritize a completion date on the TRO right now ahead of everything, then followed by the 209A. And that's I don't want it to make 209A stop, but I think that our capacity is such that not everyone needs to be working on, right? So, because the thing that's going to happen is hopefully this week, by golly, we'll have the MOU signed. And then what I want us to have something to launch, right? So the TRO is the thing that we would be ready with. And then the 209A can take a couple more days.
So my question is, if everything on the 209A has to stop in order to make the most progress we can on the TRO, is that what we want?
So then the question comes down to, depending on how long that affects, right? So right now we have the ordering is such we are probably not going to have an MOU signed for another 2 days, right? So if it doesn't delay it past 2 days time, then it's immaterial.
4 days because of the weekend.
Yeah, potentially.
But also, I just think that not everybody is going to be stopping. You know what I mean?
Take a weekend though.
Yeah.
I'm doing
imagine
testing.
Take the weekend.
People are doing testing, and some people are doing, the other 209A stuff. So it's just a case of, I understand your question, Michelle. Like, not everything is stopping though on the 209A.
Well, if we want to get all the stuff done on the what I'm saying is people that don't have jobs assigned on the TRO can definitely do other stuff. But if we find jobs for people who are working on the 209A, do we take them away from what they're doing on the 209A in order to finish up the TRO in time, as it were?
It sounds like, given the capacity we have now, the 209A people keep doing their 209A thing, and we just throw everything else at TRO.
Because I'm a 209A person as well. So
yeah, I think you're.
So
do we want to do a temporary assignment to make you a TRO person now? Let's by temporary assignment make you TRO.
Okay.
For now, so that makes it clear for your needs.
Yes, that helps.
I think we're talking about at the beginning, but I think this issue of the PDF. I'm wondering if that is something, if we have technical type volunteer, not like DocAssemble coders, but there maybe some people could research what happens with LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer and some of the other things. What happens with PDFs? Do people save files on their phones? I think that would be something that we could give volunteers to do, to go research and come back, so that we wouldn't have to do some of that. And then that could help us figure out what we wanted to do about this whole issue about either, how do people save files on their mobile devices? If they do, what are the instructions for it? How do other document assembly, or not even document assembly, but how does that work? What are the instructions that are out there for people? I think that would be a really good thing to give to a volunteer. We need that, and it doesn't make any sense for any of us to do that. And then we can work from that.
It also might just be a UX thing, right? Where it's like, you don't need to save it to your phone, just email it to yourself, or, these are the other options.
Well, the email didn't work, was the problem.
Well, I think the thing is to let somebody figure out what is happening. What are people doing now? What are the instructions?
Melanie is actually here. So she's the
Melanie's the girl.
Melanie's the one. So there we go.
Yeah. So I was the one who was having this problem.
Right.
And I was like, oh, maybe I'll just email it to myself. That would be the best thing. And it gave me a link that I figured I would be able to access to for my email, and that didn't work. And I tried all the options. And I guess there's a scenario where, like, maybe if you tell people to get some sort of document app besides Acrobat, or the Acrobat app that I had was free, but that was the only one that seemed to work from a phone versus like on the computer, it was really easy to do.
So for example, our test case had you put in a different email, like some random person's email for your email, right? If you had put in your own email, you might have been able to get it on your phone through your email. You might have received it through your email. So that is a thing to test whether, because if that email goes through, then that's a different way, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to stop using strangers' emails.
Random emails.
They're not random. They are people's names, and there
I
are
can
people
try that really
out there
quickly.
with those names.
Oh no!
What?
And
No, it was one person.
There were two of them. There were at
Poor
least
John
two.
Doe at Gmail.
They probably think they've gotten. Yeah, no. John. You don't use anything that sounds like a real name. You use like 20 random letters on your keyboard if you're gonna use.
Oh, someone gets that.
Use
Someone gets that.
example.com. That's what it's for.
But this is
Yeah,
the same.
what?
Sorry,
the
Quentin,
same
what?
stuff. What?
Example.com is reserved for testing.
Oh,
It's guaranteed to
they
not be a
didn't
real
tell me that
person's
in my
email.
20-minute testing video. What?
Yeah. So you can do
Yeah.
admin at example or.
It's a mistake that I think I know I've made, definitely, and it didn't even occur to me, and it should have occurred to me. But yes, it's like the numbers on TV shows, 555 blah blah blah, right? Because that's not actually someone's number. So if people call it, then it doesn't actually go through to anyone's number.
Okay. Well, you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, you live and you learn. And there's some people out there who are really confused, who are thinking there's a mystery in the world, And I think that's okay. It's okay for there to be some mysteries in the world.
That's right. You're bringing them joy, mystery in the world, joy.
I don't know if getting a housing TRO form is exactly the joyous email that people love to receive. But anyways, I just wanted to say there was something that sparked. I can't remember now. When I rewatch the video, then I will remember. But it's now 20:01, and
Right.
I need to eat dinner.
Go eat dinner, mate. We'll figure it out.
Right.
And I'll talk to you in like half an hour.
Sure. Yeah. All right. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Are we all leaving, or shall we?
I think we probably can, unless there's anything else we think the whole group needs to deal with.
I had a question, but really for Clinton, and so everybody can leave. You can all go now.
David,
and with me.
If David is going to be doing CSS stuff, if he has time to do CSS stuff, and
I might have time to do CSS stuff. Probably not.
Oh, okay.
Right now.
All right, that's okay then. Yes, Melanie.
Just very quickly, I did a quick test with the one that I used and put in my real email, and I got the same thing. I know that wasn't like an official test, but I don't know, is there an easy fix to that?
You got a blank email, or you got, what do you mean by the same
I got a
thing?
link, and then it said file not found. So the same thing that happened to me when I put in my real email.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you for trying that, and thank you for finding that.
Even though it wasn't an official test.
Yes, even though
it's okay. It still gives us data.
Yep. I think we should add to the test, you put in your email, and then at the end you receive an email. So we'll switch up the test so that it includes that part.
You receive an email and you can read the contents.
And the contents are what we hope they would be.
So you save in PDF, you don't save in this format called ODS.
Nope, not ODS.
Okay. And so I will do that from now on. And
just follow the form and the testing instructions, I think. Mostly.
Where are those?
I mean, whatever's on the form, what the testing instructions should take you through the steps. It doesn't matter what you save to. I mean,
okay.
PDF is more, I think, common for us. I didn't even consider ODF.
ODS looks like Excel.
ODS.
I mean, it's I don't care what it is that I save to, as long as it's functional, works.
Sure.
In the end. And I know where I'm sending it.
I think the regular dialogue that comes up for saving a PDF is the one that we should use, not like custom settings.
It's not a custom, well, it's just one of the options that I get.
Right. I'm just saying, like, don't select a different option. Just let the
Yep.
options be the default options.
PDF it is.
Perfect.
It's imprinted on my mind.
Awesome. And maybe that's a part of the instructions we should add to the testing instructions. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I think we're there.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Hey.
It's nice to see everyone.
It is nice to see everyone. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow
Bye.
afternoon.
Cheers.